Well, I made it. I made it through dry January without drinking any alcohol.
There were a few moments that tried you.
Yeah. And honestly, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. But I did. I made it. I feel accomplished. Like I feel like I accomplished something. So.
Do you feel healthier?
No. And we can get into that a little bit later.
As I crack open my beer.
But we have, as of this recording, we have 1 day left, and I cannot wait to get a beer.
We're going to celebrate with a party with a hot tub.
How are we?
Yeah.
Assuming it doesn't rain, right?
Yeah.
So in this video, we will be discussing my experiences with dry January, and we'll also talk about some alcohol-free options. We've already discussed a few of them in previous episodes, but we are going to be talking about one additional alcohol-free option, and also some recent news that has hit the airways and the wire, I guess, as the industry calls it.
Oh, snap.
And how our leaders are perhaps trying to turn dry January into permanent dry January.
I mean, January has felt like a year.
Yeah, it is. Well, how's it going, everyone? My name is Joe. This is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline.
Ahoy!
And this is the Craft Parenting Podcast, the podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. And that parenting problem is asleep.
Yeah, and very indecisive. I want my bed flipped over. Mommy, can you put my bed back?
Yeah.
We haven't done that yet, though.
3-year-olds. Almost 4-year-old.
Yeah, well, 1, he's almost 4. And 2, he asks, like, as he's getting into bed. And I'm like, no, dude.
He's done that 3 days in a row.
I'm like, you have to remind me when I get home from work. And then we can do something about it.
It's like a 2-person job.
It is a 2-person job.
Well, without further ado, what are we drinking? And then we'll get into it.
I am drinking a Taft's Brewing Company, Sad Panda, Cold Boy Anytime Lager. Smooth every time. It is less hoppy, medium malty, and light in color. Recycle. Don't be a punk. This lager features American Pilsner malt and Saaz hops for a clean, balanced character that drinks smooth every time. 60% of the time, it works 100% of the time. Ha-ha.
And, of course, Taft's Brewing Company is no longer...
Well, they're owned
Taft's Brewing Company.
Yeah, they're owned by Sinbev. So I guess it's just Taft's beer? I don't know. I think the name's still Taft's Brewing Company.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know that they've released anything.
So Gnome had a label. He showed a label at some point. I don't remember where that was. Somebody showed a label at some point.
I think it was during the Weekly Pint. But
I think it was too, but then he posted it on his page.
I don't know how far in advance they submit these.
Well, I mean, labels. That's the thing. It could be super far in advance. So it's Taft's Bathtub Bock. And he posted about it on January 21st. Mm-hmm. So he suspects that we won't see as much of a break with the brands on the shelves after all. I mean, the label is pretty cool. It's got a goat in a bathtub to go along with.
Oh, yeah?
How they usually have Taft in a bathtub.
I don't know.
Taft in a bathtub. That was not supposed to be a tongue twister.
But I am drinking hop water, pineapple hop water, in fact. And it's by 50 West. Hop water is one of the categories that is
taking over beer.
It's taking over, I guess. It's not really a beer, but it tastes like beer a little bit.
I don't know. But I need to pause and come back to this label for bathtub buckets, but for real fast. So Taft's does like a lot of stuff with their recycling label where they'll change it for everyone. And this one is recycling is the GOAT. GOAT. I mean, I probably thought that was funnier than you, but I thought that was pretty nifty.
Well, I tried to find like a description for this. I mean, hop water is like literally just hop water.
It's water with a smidge. Like what exactly is hop water? Is it just water with some hops in it?
Hop pellets, yeah.
Okay.
Like, I guess it's...
So all the dankness, none of the fun?
Yeah, you want to try it?
I have tried it. It confuses me because you got pineapple hop water, and I don't really drink a lot of like sparkling water,
Yeah,
and it's very like sparkling water-ish.
It has citra hops in it. Now, so this is by a local company, 50 West.
Yep.
There's also Hop Water, which is Hop WTR. Same concept, except I think they are their own thing. I've been hearing a lot about them, but I don't know that I've seen them like on the shelves in Kroger or whatever.
Can you show me that logo again? I mean, it's not the Rheingeist logo, but from a distance, I was like, is that the Rheingeist logo?
Well,
it's a hop cone in a drop of water.
Cone in a drop of water, and Rheingeist is a ghost.
Yeah. A river ghost.
Yes.
So similar vibes. The vibes check out.
So I don't know if this applies to like everything, but well, the 50 West one at least has 0 calories. It's non-alcoholic, 0 sugar. Right.
I think so.
0 sugar, 0 carbs, and gluten-free.
Yeah, because they don't use the barley or the malts. They just use the hops.
Are
barley and malts the same thing? Probably. Water, hops, yeast, malt.
Yeah,
grain.
Because we use
Or they're types of grain.
We use extract malt.
We do use malt extract when we brew.
And then we had the grain.
It's been almost 4 years since we've brewed.
Well, there was the malt extract, and then we had the grain.
Yeah.
We
added some extra grain to it.
So I don't know. I'm assuming they do different things.
Yeah. It's considered extract brewing, but we did still use some actual grain. I put it in my garden, but we'd have to brew again, and Zoe would probably eat it because she's a brat.
She would definitely eat it. Yeah, so this is different than the Hop Water brand.
Mm-hmm. So hop water contains adaptogens, a.k.a. ashwagandha? Something along those lines. I make zero apologies for my mispronunciations of stuff. These herbs support the body's natural ability to deal with stress. They adapt their function according to the specific physical, chemical, or biological needs of the body. Hop water features ashwagandha, one of the most popular Ayurvedic?
This is worse than the Iceland beer that we had read.
Ayurvedic herbs
Polish,
commonly used to modulate stress and enhance well-being. Okay, guys, for those listening at home, Ayurvedic. Ayurvedic is the best I can come up with.
All right.
That's what I'm rolling with. There's also nootropics, which are compounds that enhance cognitive performance. And each hop water is infused with theanine, an ingredient that can boost memory, enhance focus, and improve overall brain function. New to nootropics, caffeine and omega-3 fatty acids are an example of other widely used nootropics. This is like, so like that whole thing where it's like you just constantly read a word. Like let's say hors d'oeuvres. You constantly read the word hors d'oeuvres, but nobody says it out loud in the same context with which you read it. And so you're like, hours devours or something like that. And it's like, no, that's hors d'oeuvres. And you're like, this makes zero sense. It's like that, but with science-y words.
So hop water seems to, like I said, that was specifically for that brand of hop water. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's a universal thing because I can't find a description.
50 West probably does not do as much science-y stuff in regards to it because it's not their main focus.
But
it's just a funsy.
This particular brand, the hop water, WTR, mm-hmm. They do have different chemicals that help your body with stress and I guess it could be a alternative to like caffeine if you want to get off caffeine.
That's sacrilegious.
Yeah.
I didn't have caffeine one Sunday, and then I was like, why does my head hurt so much? And I was like, oh, it is too late for me to have caffeine in the day now. So now I just have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Hardest drug to come off of.
It tastes like sparkling water, but it has like that bitterness of hops.
You know what also tastes like sparkling water?
Beer.
This beer that I'm currently drinking.
It does not.
It's light flavored beer.
It tastes smoother.
It does taste a lot smoother.
This is extremely bubbly. It's almost too bubbly.
Okay.
Like
I'm willing to try it again. The first time I tried this, my brain was very broken, so I don't think I made a good opinion. It's like sparkling it's like sparkling pineapple juice. Well, maybe like sparkling. I squeezed a little bit of pineapple in this, and then you get a little bit of that hop bitters. It's good. It's not my cup of tea.
it's a little too bubbly for me.
It is very effervescent, one might say.
Yes. So yeah, it's just an alternative to beer. Now, if I'm out and about, I'm probably not going to get this. I wonder.
I mean, out of all of the options that we've had for dry January, it's probably mocktail, hop water, NA beer, NA wine, as far as my order of preference.
Yeah.
For what I would drink. Now, like, just straight water is the top of my list, but that's like always at the top of my list. Like, I am fine drinking water all the time. I don't like need to drink pop or juice or other stuff. Like, just water is fine.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of options, but I'm going to assume this is probably... I don't think they're going to charge $7 for this, but it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to ferment it. Like, so with the seltzer...
They still have to can it.
You still have... Yeah, but you're still fermenting it with the seltzer. You don't ferment this. So it doesn't have... It might not even have to... Probably doesn't even have to touch your fermenters. It only has to touch your mash tun. I don't know. We haven't gone into, like, how it's made. So I'm making stuff up.
Well, I mean, you still have time on the canning line that you're...
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a canning line and you're canning hop water, you're not canning beer, so...
You probably still have to brew it because you have to get that hop flavor out of it. So it's going to spend time in your mash tun. Maybe it'll spend some time in your bright tank just so it's easier to get to your canning line. But this might be you can can it in a day versus I can can it 2+ weeks from now.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
This is probably the new seltzer, or this might be where it's going.
Well, yeah, because between this and THC beverages,
yeah,
I think they're eating away at seltzers.
Yeah, I mean, it's middle of winter, so it's not really seltzer season.
Yeah.
But it's not really hop water season, but I would say this would probably be really good in, July.
Yeah. Well, it's like the warmest day we've had all month.
Yeah, so that helps.
It helps out a lot. Yeah, but it's still pretty cold outside. Though I did drive to work with the windows down the other day. It was like 32 degrees outside, but I was like, this feels good.
Heat wave.
I need more than my hands and my feet to tell you what temperature it is outside. Ah! Yeah, it was a lot of the snow is melting. Which is sad, but also like it was starting to look really gross because it had been around too long. We're not used to that here.
Yeah, I mean it's we have a hill that the kids sled ride down, and it's mostly in shadow most of the day.
And like I haven't seen anybody sled ride on it in like a week and a half. And I'm like, you could still go sled riding on that thing.
I saw a kid, I think on Sunday, sled riding.
Okay.
As
we
it
have
was
not
melting,
been sled riding.
as it was melting, but our backyard is also the top of it is it's an incline. The top of it is in sun, but the bottom isn't. So there's still snow.
Yeah.
And we have like a French drain thing, and it's just like frozen.
Yeah.
So,
Well, because like the sun would warm up the snow, but then it would still be like 20 degrees outside. So all the water would still be ice. Our pond is still mostly frozen. I think there's like starting to be like a thin layer of water on the top, but it's still completely frozen. Like the whole surface of it is frozen.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been so cold. I mean, we had a chance to get a deep freeze. We might have been able to go ice fishing. Now, I was not stepping out onto that pond because I don't trust any of that stuff, but we might have been able to go ice fishing on our pond.
I didn't think it was that cold, but
We hit negatives at a few points.
But I mean, that was the pond is in the sun. I mean,
It's still frozen.
Interesting. I doubt it would hold anything though. It's probably, I didn't think it was that.
I don't know, man.
Anyway, so that is all about hop water. That's what we're drinking.
As far as what we know and have speculated.
Yeah. You kind of went into it, but my alternative, like as far as how dry January went and what did I drink, I tended to gravitate towards, unfortunately, like pop, Coke, Coke and Sprite. I don't know that dry January would, I don't know that it made me healthier. Exactly. As I
made a lot of healthy meals, or at least I tried to.
Yeah. But as far as, drinking healthy, I definitely did not. I just kind of replaced one vice with another, which pop. It's not good for you. One would argue that's probably worse than, a beer.
It's possible. Oh, wait. Okay, so to stay on hop water for a hot second, this is from Sierra Nevada's website. So their brewing is carbon filtered water. So it starts with the same water they use for brewing, carbon filtered to ensure it's best. And then they put CO2, they dissolve CO2 into the water to make it fizzy. And, Hop Splash has zero alcohol, yet its CO2 actually comes from beer fermentation. So two byproducts of fermentation are alcohol and carbon dioxide. We capture, clean, and reuse the CO2 from fermentation to carbonate Hop Splash. So they use the CO2 from their beers to carbonate their hop water sparkling beverage. They steep their Citra and Amarillo hops in the water for a precise, brief amount of time to extract only the bright tropical medley of hop notes. It's like dry hopping a beer, where the goal is more aroma and flavor. And since the hops cannot intoxicate, plus there's no yeast in fermentation, it's completely non-alcoholic. So yeah, they take water, steep some hops in it, carbonate it, slap it in a can.
Yeah, but okay, that's interesting. So thank you for that. So as far as dry January went, like I said, I tended to replace one vice with another. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I was more healthy. As I kind of briefly touched on it in a previous episode, I tended to crave, sugar. Mm-hmm. And apparently that's not a unique thing for dry January, mm-hmm. Which is, I think it's interesting. So I have a source. We can try. A lot of it is paywalled. There's one in Women's Health. So they say, this is the only one that's not paywalled. And this is from last January 2024.
Because we care about everyone's health. Women care.
Why do I crave sugar after cutting out alcohol? Experts explain the science behind your hankering for sweets. So alcohol can make you feel calm, relaxed, and even euphoric, which can help keep you reaching back for glass after glass. Specifically, booze increases your blood glucose levels, which is sugar, which triggers the release of dopamine, a hormone that is part of the body's reward system in the brain's ventral striatum or reward center. Dopamine also reduces activity in your brain's extended amygdala, which controls your emotions and stress responses per the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse
Amygdala.
and Alcoholism.
I got it. In the middle of your sentence, I'm sorry, but I got it. Amygdala. That's what that word was.
All right. There you go. Sugar, especially sucrose, the simplest form of sugar, often found in sour candies and soda, is often a welcome substitute because it triggers the release of dopamine and increases feelings of pleasure.
So because you're not getting the yeasty sugar from the beer, your body's like, I would like sugar?
That's basically what it is. And apparently that's a very common experience.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was surprising to me. Like I thought, as I mentioned in the previous episode, I thought I would be craving beer, but I was just craving like sugar. Yeah. Like I wanted ice cream or I wanted a pop or...
You did also eat a lot of ice cream.
I did, yes.
Because like previous months, I'd be like, hey, I'm at Kroger. What do you want? And then I get home and he'd be like, oh, we're out of ice cream. I wanted more ice cream. But this was like, I'm at the grocery store. What do you want? Ice cream. Hey, I think I might go to Kroger. Ice cream. It's very insistent on getting ice cream.
Yeah.
And he made a whole cherry pie while I was gone for one night. I'm gone for one night and you make a whole cherry pie.
You were supposed to come home though.
It was a freezer pie. But yeah, and then he fell asleep. So I did not eat any of the pie.
So that was kind of a surprise, I guess, reaction to dry January. I'm not interested in like total prohibition, but I do think I want to like cut back like during the week and stuff.
Yeah. What do you think about the take a week a month and don't have alcohol instead of the do a whole month where you don't have alcohol?
Well, I mean, I would rather personally just drink on the weekend plus during our podcast. So that's what, 3 days a week?
I mean, it'd be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Technically 4 days a week.
4 days a week, yeah. Whichever. And then like strictly limit it to, a certain amount. Total prohibition is probably not the best way to go. If you're trying to cut out alcohol. It's probably do little at a time.
Yeah. Well, you gotta.
I mean, if you're like dependent on it and you have a problem, like don't take medical advice from me about that. But if you're just like,
this is our boilerplate. We are not medical, legal, financial, or tax advice. Is that usually what I say? I forgot the boilerplate.
Whichever, yeah.
Medical, legal, and financial cover us for most things.
We're not advice, yeah. But if you're just like sober curious, I would say like start, like cut out the week, like during the weekdays. Like,
yeah.
And then you can go from there maybe. But I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Dry January?
I'm very proud of you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I've done twice for at least 8 months in a row.
Wow.
So,
I mean,
that's your next challenge.
Did you want beer when you were pregnant?
I mean, I still took like tiny sips like here or there, or like I would sniff your beer, but not, I mean, I was mostly just like hungry all the time, but then like nothing sounded good. And then like I ate like 4 bites and I'm full because I'm shoving this kid off my stomach. Give me room so I can feed you. Meanwhile, they're trying to crack my ribs with their little feet.
There's nothing little about our kids.
No. Well, like today, Joe's mom was like, Elliot's so small. And I'm like, he is perfectly average, which is fine. And she's like, well, Lily's not that big. Lily's like 90th plus percentile. Oh, well, my boys were off the charts. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. She's still in size 8 clothes. Now, like, she fits in like size 5. She fits in like size 6, 7, but they're getting smaller on her. Mm-hmm. So, like, a lot of the clothes that she got for Christmas was size 8. But she's not swimming in them. She's 5.
Yeah. She's a big girl.
People always think she's at least a year older than she is.
I would say too, like she looks like a second grader.
She almost got communion at church because the priest forgot that she was small child. Because she does not look like small child anymore.
That was that Christmas, I thought. No, that was at our church.
Yeah, with the priest that we see like at least twice a month. Well, she wanted to walk behind me at church on Sunday, and I was like, no, you ain't allowed to do that. I am crossing your arms, and you are walking in front of me, because I know what you gonna try to do. You think you're slick, but you ain't. She's
sneaky, yeah. So, there's this movement, there's there are these trends, right? Mm-hmm. There's Dry January. There's all these new options. There's hop water, which we discussed today. There's non-alcoholic wine, which we discussed. There's the mocktail market, non-alcoholic spirits, which we kind of discussed, but we haven't tried. And then there's, of course, any beer. So there's all these non-alcoholic categories mm-hmm. that are becoming more and more popular. And the cannabis stuff, I would just consider that a vice for a vice. Like I would consider that like the same level as alcohol.
Yeah, well,
that's not sober curious. Like specifically, I'm talking about like the sober curious market. I'll call it mm-hmm. like what I said, the not alcohol free, cannabis free, like health drinks, but not really health drinks, like fake health drinks.
Yeah.
There's like this rise of this culture, this sober culture. So I guess my question is like, is the culture of craft beer changing?
Probably, because the people who kicked it off are now older and are at different stages of their lives where maybe this isn't what they necessarily want to do as much as they did before. But the younger generation has so many options and can't really like pin themselves down for anything that we don't have a good like passing the torch. Now, granted, there's not also a lot of like historic behind it, because like a lot of what your dad drank is like macro light beer. So it's not like like you didn't open up the fridge and be like, I can choose between like a stout or an IPA or a lager or a pilsner, like, or an amber. Like, I have mass produced beer. Now, you were slightly an exception to that because you've had German beer at German Club.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like wine, where wine just kind of seems to do what wine does. It's like, it's a bit more stable, but it's also more like upper class, other than like slap in the bag. There's not really a whole lot of in between, and beer's in that in between space, and there's lots of transition in that space.
It does seem to be evolving like very quickly. And unfortunately, we've had some turnover. We've talked about Taft's. You're drinking one of their beers, which I guess that's a bad example. But as far as like brewery space,
Yeah.
there are no more.
I wouldn't necessarily say we're in a bubble. We're more in like a leveling out period.
A correction.
Yeah, because like we had a lot of breweries opening up real fast, and then that kind of petered off. And now we have breweries closing, but they're also like that space is getting taken over by another brewery. Because like Taft shut down the Ale House, well then Melotone went into that space, which is just another brewery.
Yeah.
So I mean, like as far as I know, nobody's taking over the Dogberry space. As far as I know, there's not a brewery that's going to go into the 16 lot space. But Mad Tree's opening up a new location. Fable just expanded. Like, there is growth. It's just not as fast, and it's different. It's more, I'm opening up a secondary location or expanding my current location than all of these places are opening rapid fire.
And do you think there's a culture shift happening that's like against alcohol? Like kind of what happened in the 20s and in the early 1900s through the 20s?
I don't see us getting to the point of the 20s yet. I don't...
Like...
The problem is history repeats itself and it comes in cycles, so I could potentially see it happening again. We just start home brewing.
It rhymes. It doesn't repeat itself. So I think this time, and I have some, articles to back this up, but I think this time, instead of like going for like the amendment to, say no alcohol, it's forbidden. We're going to do raids and do shootouts with gangsters over alcohol.
Create some more George Remises and Al Capones.
So instead of doing that, like it seems like they are trying to change culture and say alcohol bad. We're telling you, we're like drilling this in your mind. Alcohol bad, so that the younger generation just grows up saying alcohol bad, I'm not going to drink it. And they're going to...
And this is when I point out, it doesn't always do what is intended. Sometimes it's not always going to be the motivating factor it's not always going to be the motivating factor as to why someone makes a decision about things. I mean, a lot of your home life and your mental function has a lot to play into that as well. But there's a lot of we said red wine was really good for you, and now maybe we're not so sure about that.
Well, they say that about coffee like every 2 days.
Well, and then
coffee good, coffee bad, coffee good, coffee bad.
Well, and then it's like if you dig into some of the history of that, Like, there were two guys who published a study in a sketchy journal that was not peer reviewed about how eating dark chocolate is good for you. I'm like 95% sure on the story behind this. But they didn't have any research to back that up. They just published a paper in a non-peer reviewed journal just to see what would happen. And the news media picked it up like crazy because this thing published in a journal says dark chocolate's good for you. We should eat more dark chocolate, blah, 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 blah. And they just take off with it, even though there's no science to back that up. And the thing with science is that science evolves as we learn more, as we find new ways to look at stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, eggs have been good for you and bad for you like 5 different times in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Now it's, oh man, everything except for this one vitamin that you need to survive off of is in eggs. Eggs are great. But for a while it was, well, eggs are high in this cholesterol and that's bad. And well, eggs are high in this cholesterol and that's good. Like, you can have egg whites, but not egg yolks. And it's like it changes.
So I'm going to read this article and then we can kind of talk about, I'll start with the Wall Street Journal article, which was published January 21st, 2025. And I think I screenshotted one of the craft beer groups.
And everybody was like, nope.
So the headline is, the alcohol industry is hooked on its heaviest drinkers. While many drinkers cut back, some people who consume 15 or more drinks a week say they are unfazed by health risks. Quote, it is delicious poison.
I mean, if you just don't care, you don't care. I can show you 20 articles on how smoking is going to kill you. But if you don't care, you just don't care. It ain't going to change your line of thinking.
So most ads for liquor or beer include a reminder to drink responsibly. Still, the alcohol industry depends on people who drink more than public health officials say is safe.
So let me pause for that. Pause on that for a second. Is that because they're regulated to do that, though? Because, like, all of the gambling commercials are gamble responsibly, and like they have to contribute money to gambling recovery stuff in order to like put out ads.
I mean, there are label requirements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far as advertising, yeah, there are restrictions.
Yeah.
On what you can say and not say.
So I think like whether or not they want to, like they have to say that. I'm 90% sure on that.
And even if they aren't required, I'm pretty sure like the lawyers would all be like,
CYA. You always CYA.
Yeah. So they continue. A fifth of adults account for an estimated 90% of alcohol sales volume in the U.S.
What percentage of those people are in Ohio?
According to an analyst published in 2023 by equity research firm Bernstein. I thought Ohio was mentioned.
We usually are.
Hang on. But that's really what I wanted to say. No, that's in the other one, I think.
Okay. Yeah, usually like if it's like top 50 beer cities in the U.S., it's like Cincinnati and I think Cleveland usually end up on that list.
No, it was Ohio is actually...
it was Ohio was going into more.
5.
Yeah, it was the NA article. We were in like the top 10 for states that drink NA beer, which I mean, somebody's got to be the top 10. Somebody's got to be the bottom 10. When I got friends that compare their kids to ours, and I'm like, somebody's got to be the bottom 10th percentile. Like, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or your kid. It just, somebody's got to be that bottom 10%.
Yeah. So I guess my concern is that 90% of a fifth of adults account for 90% of sales. So the category doesn't seem to be growing.
No, I mean, if you listen to a few other people talk about it that know more about the industry than we do, like they say the pie for beer is the same size. The size of that pie does not change. It's the size of the slices that change. So when seltzer came along, it didn't necessarily add to the size of the pie. It took away some of people's slices. People were drinking less beer and more seltzer. So that pie changed.
I think it's still about demand, though.
It is.
So yeah, it does change. It goes smaller.
Well, trying to remember what my analogy was. Well, it's like as if you technically seltzer can be considered beer, which is why a lot of people were able to make it, because you use malt, and as soon as you throw a hop cone in it, hey, look, I made beer. It's not like golden liquid beer, but it is technically a beer product. Or it's a malt beverage, which falls under that. I think it falls under that same thing.
Yeah.
Same umbrella of your beer license. But so like as far as like if you include seltzer in that beer pie, I'm not adding any more drinkers to my pie. I'm just saying, well, instead of 50% of my pie being macro beer, now it's only 48%. And instead of 33% being medium-sized craft breweries, now it's only 30% because those people switch to drinking seltzer. And like craft beer drinkers are more likely to try out other beverages. They're more likely to stray versus like your macro beer guy. I got a guy at work that drinks Busch Light. That's all he drinks. That's all he wants to drink is Busch Light.
Yeah.
He ain't going to change. He's just going to drink Busch Light. Whereas like craft beer guys, they hop around stuff all the time.
Yeah, there is a portion of the craft beer community, as far as the drinkers go, that are the trend. They go where the trends are. Mm-hmm. They want to try the trendy things.
The summers of Natty Light, those were fun. Natter days,
or the milkshake IPAs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that's why bottle shares were a thing. Mm-hmm. They wanted to try. They wanted to go where the trends were. And there's also like a cultural community feel to that.
They're only making 100 bottles of this. I got to get one of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can see that. They're more likely to go and try different things. But breweries aren't going to make, different things just because they feel like it. Like there has to be a demand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, sometimes you create that demand, but
I don't think
like the first person that made hop water.
But that's not I don't think that was a brewery necessarily. I think that was its own thing.
Hop water itself said it was two dads who were trying to figure out how they could drink beer flavored things without getting intoxicated. And that's how that started out. Per their website and my
Yeah, but that's a different category than, a craft beer drinker. That's a dad.
I mean, it's a dad craft beer drinker.
Yeah.
Who, well, maybe I can't drink as much beer because I'm always out and about with the kids, or I'm concerned if I have 2 beers and then something happens to the kids, what do I do? But I can have hop water, and I can drink hop water whenever I want.
Okay. So you mentioned this before, but the millennials who kind of grew up with, in their 20s going to these breweries, mm-hmm. They are getting older. They're having kids and starting families. They're trying to be more health conscious. Why do you think the younger generation hasn't picked up where they left off?
COVID probably has a lot to do with it because COVID shut down all of your happy hours and all of your going out and because a lot of our craft beer stuff started with, hey, we're with a bunch of people. What are you drinking? Here, you can have a sip of what I'm drinking. That's not necessarily a thing anymore. A lot of their socializing is online. It's not necessarily, I'm going to go hang out at the bar with 4 of my friends and we're going to bar hop. Because they started coming of age during that. or directly after that.
But was the writing on the wall before that in 2019 or?
A bit, because as marijuana started becoming more legal and some things started becoming less frowned upon, it was definitely, well, I can be more out in the open, or I can be less likely to drink alcohol because I'm doing other things instead. My personal take.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of rhetoric going around lately, I've noticed, in headlines and stuff. Not that not Gen Z or whatever.
I was going to say, Gen X are the ones older than us, bud.
Not that Gen Z or whatever they're called. Not that they read headlines or whatever. But there has been a lot of rhetoric. So there was that article. Only I read that to show that I don't think the industry is growing. And I think that's concerning. Unless, like you need beer drinkers to brew,
Yeah.
to make beer, right?
You need kids like ours that say, hey, when we going to a brewery again?
Not kids like ours. No. But this one is from CNBC, and it was published basically at the January 4th. So this year.
The start of Dry January.
Yeah. They published this article on the heels of, well, I'll just read it. There is no safe level of alcohol to drink, doctors say. Not even one glass of red wine per day.
How big is the glass? Technically, the bottle is a glass. Just throwing that out there because it is made of glass.
It says not even one
I know,
glass.
but how big is that one glass?
Oh, they define it.
Yeah, it's probably like 4 to 6 ounces or something stupid.
Yeah.
Small amount.
So this was on the heels of the U.S. Surgeon General putting out a new advisory about alcohol, saying that no amount of alcohol is safe.
Oh, wait, that's right. I talked about this with Truth, Beer, and Consequences.
And it causes alcohol. Yeah.
I forgot
It
about that.
causes cancer, rather.
Yeah. Do you remember my take from that? Did you listen to that episode?
No. I don't remember it. I mean,
Okay.
it's been a while.
My take on that was, okay, sweet, sure, but can we focus on the stuff that's going to immediately kill you first? The allergens may contain peanuts, may contain tree nuts, contains lactose. Put the ish on the bottle or the can that's going to be a problem 2 seconds from now. Let's get that on there first, and then we can worry about the thing that's going to kill you in 20 years. Because the big C is scary. The big C is not something to shake a stick at. But the fact that we're living longer makes the big C more of a thing.
Well, we're not living longer. The life expectancy went down because of COVID. So we're living.
Lung infections will do that.
Yeah, so I think he proposed that a mandate for all beer labels to say this, just like a cigarette label. However, he doesn't have the power to do that.
Yeah.
It's like an act of Congress.
I'm going to be that person. You can show me 20 articles. Don't matter. I'm still going to have a beer every once in a while. I'm not like drinking 20 beers a day.
But from like a cultural perspective, do you think this would move the needle one way or another? Like if they start saying, I mean, they kind of killed the cigarette industry over a period of like 50 years.
There was very clear-cut evidence on that. There is clear-cut evidence on liver disease, but it's usually like, I drank a boatload. But then you also have like the 102-year-old grandma who's sitting in an armchair and they're like, how'd you live so long? And she's like, I drink a glass of whiskey and eat 2 hot dogs a day. And like, she's still kicking.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's different and everybody's body is different. So who knows? What was the first thing? What was it that you said before I started talking? Because I had some point that I wanted to hit and then I completely lost it.
It's an act of Congress. So he wants to mandate that the cancer warning goes on.
Oh, this is what it was. Now I work in a manufacturing plant, which is a pretty understood like dynamic of people as far as like their thoughts and opinions on the world are usually pretty meshy. A lot of them are of the mind of, why do we have all these warning labels on stuff? Like, take some of the warning labels off and just let Darwinism sort itself out. Like the do not stop chainsaw with arms or legs. Like, no dip. Do not start chainsaw between legs. No dip. Now, granted, the chainsaw did start to help with childbirth. True facts. If you don't believe me, Google it and then be massively shocked. It's pretty fun. It's scary, but fun.
Not a modern day chainsaw, though.
Not modern day but the invention of the chainsaw. Google it. I mean, there's going to get to be a point where, and we're starting to get to that point where people just don't care anymore. They're like, yeah, put 20 warning labels on it. Part of it's survivor bias. Well, I've been fine. My family's been fine. Like, we're all going to be fine. Yeah. But it's also like, yes, water is wet. You don't need to put a warning label saying the water is wet. This should be something that we all know.
I mean, alcohol is something that's been around for, a millennial.
Since almost the dawn of time.
Yeah. Specifically beer, right?
They keep finding it dated later and later.
And wine. Beer and wine especially.
Well, yeah, because my grain got wet and then it accidentally turned into beer. Or I left this wine in this jar for too long and some yeast got into it. And oh my goodness, now it tastes super fun.
I mean, there's wine in...
I left this grape juice.
There's wine in the Bible in Jesus' time.
Yeah.
So they drink wine and stuff.
All I need to know that wine is good is Jesus turned water into wine. Therefore, it's fine.
So I think, just moderation. But I don't know. What do you think? So I was curious about the beer industry. And, there's all this talk about a bubble. How big...
The sky is falling!
How big is the bubble? Like, how impactful would it be if the bubble were to burst? So I looked up some quick numbers. I only have 2023 numbers. Sometimes it's
2024 like just ended.
Well, sometimes it's not even 2023, but I'll read it. According to the Brewers Association, the craft beer industry contributed $77.1 billion to the U.S. economy in 2023. Nearly 460,000 jobs. The wine industry, however, directly employs as many as over 1 million people and generates additional almost 400,000 jobs in supplier and ancillary industries, which supply goods and services to the industry. Ultimately, 1.84 million jobs are created and supported by the wine industry.
Grapes. They're delicious.
Yeah,
sometimes I have a grape salad, which is wine.
Yeah. And there's like a ton, there's like a really huge supply chain for wine. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more complex, I feel like, than beer.
It is. And it's also like very interesting because like you give people like 3 different bottles of wine and you don't tell them which one's which, and sometimes they have issues picking out the most expensive one because there's just all these like inflated values on things. Good case study for people.
And finally, the spirits industry. So this is like your whiskey and stuff like that. Supports around 1.7 million jobs through the production, distribution, and sale of distilled spirits in the U.S.
1 million of those jobs are Bourbon County, Kentucky. Not really, but probably a lot of those are in Kentucky. Kentucky and Tennessee.
For sure. So
some of them are not employed in Kentucky and Tennessee. If you see a still, no, you don't.
So yeah, that is how big of an impact this industry has on our economy. So it's kind of concerning that one, it doesn't seem to be growing, at least according to that article. And maybe it is, there could be like anecdotal, like Ohio could be doing better than California or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anecdotal, like local. If you're like the neighborhood pub, the neighborhood brewery,
Yeah,
you could be doing fine.
If you're right next to Party Source, you might be more liquor than beer because New Riff is right there.
Well, I'm just saying, like, not everyone has to be a Matry, right? Or a Rheingeist. You can be the neighborhood bar with the regulars, right? The same people that come in every day that support you, that pay the bills and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like to put words in Gnome's mouth, there isn't a bubble. There's just a limit unless you're trying to be too big. There's not going to be another Rheingeist in Cincinnati. There's not necessarily going to be another Mad Tree in Cincinnati. You could be a Brink. You could be a Third Eye. You can be your small neighborhood brewery. And like small, so you could be like Westside where you've got a little bit of reach with your beers, but you're not like hanging out in Canton, Ohio, up by Cleveland, and you're like, what local beers you got? And they're like, hey, we got this beer from Rheingeist. We got this beer from Urban Artifact. And you're like, I live in Cincinnati. That ain't local to you guys. That's local to me. What is going on?
Yeah. And then there's the Brett Coleman Baker quote, get rich in your niche.
Yep.
Which I feel like he took the niche, so.
He did. Well, he carved out the niche.
Yeah.
And furnished it. Yeah. And killed it. Like as far as like he
crushed it.
Yeah.
He did good.
He did good things. Well, it's like the difference between like that shit and that's the shit.
Yes. So it is kind of, I guess, concerning that you have this Surgeon General who wants to put the warning label. I don't know that it would have an impact, but there's like a potential that it could.
I want to say it's in the UK. Maybe it's Canada. Somewhere.
Canada has the
packages of cigarettes have like black lungs. Like they have cancerous lungs and like.
Well, I don't know about that, but Canada adopted the World Health Organization policy for alcohol. Yeah, so Canada says no beer.
Yeah. Well,
no alcohol.
Well, no. So there is somewhere, and I want to say it might be the UK, where their packages of cigarettes have like pictures of cancerous lungs on them, or like people with trachs. Like they have to do that. It's not just a warning label. It's also like a giant picture that goes with it. People are still buying the stuff. If you don't care, you don't care. Like, and at some point, everything has a warning label on it. Why does this one matter?
Yeah, I used to, just real quick, and then we'll close up. I used to work at a packaging plant that did like nuts and bolts and stuff, odds and ends. You would clock in, and the machine would tell you what to get on the wall, and you would take 2 of this and 3 of that. Almost everything said, this will cause you cancer in California.
Yeah.
Not in Ohio, in California. But because they sold product to places in California, they had to have that label.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. So you have two options. You have a product that you can sell everywhere, and you put a warning label on it. Or you have a product where you can sell it most everywhere, and you have a different product that you sell for those certain places with higher regulations.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of I understand the joke. Like, why does this cause cancer in California, but not in Ohio? Like it specifically says in California.
Yeah.
This chemical is known to cause cancer or whatever. It's like, well,
it's everywhere, but California is the only one that's saying you got to put that on there. But is it like it's 0.3% likely or it's like 80% likely? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think a warning label would deter me, but I think it'll help. Like if they get away with it, if they try it and they get what they want, I think it would potentially take away from the potential of people who...
It might make more people hesitant.
More hesitant to drink beer.
To start
drinking beer.
Yeah.
If a young child who's like in first grade now, she grows up learning about alcohol and it's bad. It's bad.
It's 50-50 on how that could end up. Because you either roll with that or it's the I'm a rebel against everybody in my teenage years. The teenage years are weird.
Yeah, I could, but or they could propose, laws and stuff like that when they become of age.
Yeah.
Like we went through the DARE program and we always said, alcohol is bad, but when you're 21, you can drink. Mm-hmm. Like responsibly. Like it was always, it's bad when you're young, but you can drink when you're older. Like it's an older adult thing.
Yeah, it's stuff with your brain development.
Like that.
And impairing that.
That was the narrative. It was just mostly don't drink, don't drive. That's bad, of course.
Mm-hmm. Totally down for don't drink and drive. Definitely is a thing.
It was more of you can have it in moderation.
Yeah.
And it's probably okay. You can go out with friends. You can have fun. You can be social.
Because we tax that. So we get money from it.
Right. I mean, that's how the economy works and stuff. But it just seems like even beyond Gen Z, like forget Gen Z, like
there's alpha and now beta.
Yeah, beta. I'm more like talking about those generations. Like if you start to plant the seed now, will they even want to drink beer? And
I don't know.
How are we mitigating that? How are we educating people? I think that's about wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you
slam that like button, smash subscribe, ring that notification bell.
Yes, and if you're on the audio podcast,
5 stars.
Give us that 5-star rating and review.
Do you see my hands when I do that? Okay, you can see at least one of my hands. That hand.
Yeah.
We're twinsies today. We're both wearing gray striped shirts, and I just now noticed that.
Is that a striped shirt?
It is. It's a very thin stripe, but it is striped.
Okay. So give us that 5-star rating and review. We really appreciate it. If you want to connect with us, we are on all the social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, of course, Instagram, X, Rumble. I think that's it. I said it out of order. But we are on all those platforms. If you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram and X at Dad of Words because I write stuff in my free time now.
Yeah. I am at Caroline Creates Crafts, and I'm getting into watercolor now. Because who doesn't need another hobby when they've got 15 already?
But we thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Make sure you go back and check out our other episodes. We have a whole list of, we have a whole back catalog, but more specifically, we talked quite a bit about Dry January and all the options. We talked about NA beer, that's audio only. We talked about NA wine, mocktails, and of course, what is Dry January? So like an about episode. So go check out those episodes and we will see you again next time on the Craft Parenting Podcast.